Chapter 40. A Bed of Stars. Overblade Goddard stood in his chambers, looking down at the blue satin bed cover. It was the same fabric, the same color as his robe, and while his robe was speckled with diamonds, the bed was awash with them. Tens of thousands of them were spread across the bedspread, a galaxy of glittering stars so heavy the mattress sagged from the weight. He had strewn them there as a way to raise his troubled spirits. Surely their magnificence would bring him not just comfort, but elevation. Elevation enough to rise above the attacks and accusations that were being leveled at him from every direction. The streets of Fulcrum City below were flooding with crowds chanting against Goddard and his New Order sites. It was the type of thing that had not been seen since mortal days. The Thunderhead kept people reasonably satisfied, and sites had never abused their power to such a point that people would risk leaning to rally against them. Until now. But Goddard still had his diamonds. He did not covet them for their value. He did not hoard them as riches. That would have been beneath a scythe such as himself. Riches were nothing, for a scythe already had everything. Any material object one could desire, scythes could simply take from whomever they pleased, whenever they pleased. But the scythe diamonds were different. For Goddard, they were symbols, clear and ambiguous markers of his success, counterweights on a balance that would not be level until all 400,000 were in his possession. He had close to half of them now, all given to him freely as tribute by highblades who saw the value of allegiance and had accepted him as the way forward, the future of the global Scythedom, the future of the world. But would any more diamonds come after Anastasia's broadcasts? Common people everywhere were openly speaking out against him, in spite of their fear of being linked. Regions that had allied with him were hedging and even pulling their support, as if he was nothing more than a mortal-aged despot who had fallen out of favor. Couldn't they see that he was motivated by duty and a clear sense of destiny that he had nurtured for many, many years? He had sacrificed everything for that destiny. He had helped to murder his own parents and everyone else on the Mars colony, because he knew that would be nothing in the larger picture. And once ordained into the Mid-American Scythedom, he had risen quickly in the ranks. People liked him. People listened to him. He had eloquently convinced the wisest of the wise to embrace the joy of gleaning. In a perfect world, one job should be a perfect pleasure, even ours. The fact that he could convince the wise was proof that he was even wiser than them. And now he had brought them to the brink of a better world. A world without tonists, or genetic outliers, or lazy parasites who contributed nothing of value to their society. A world where the unsightly, unseemly, and unredeemable were put down by those who knew best. Those I'll kill. Goddard was proud of what he was and what he did. He would not allow this uprising to derail him this close to achieving that goal. He would crush them by any means necessary. The diamonds before him were proof of what he had accomplished and what he still could, and yet the sight of them made him feel no better. "Are you going to wallow in them?" He turned to see Scythe Rand standing in the doorway. She sauntered to the bed and picked up the scythe diamond. She turned it in her fingers, looking into its many facets. "Are you going to roll in them like a picky mat?" Goddard did not have the strength to be angry with her. "I am in a dark place, Zane," he said. "More and more people are rolling around Saint Anastasia and her accusations." He reached down and rolled his hands across the diamonds on the bed, their sharp edges scraping the skin of his palm. Then he impulsively gripped a handful of them, squeezing them tightly until they drew blood. "Why must I always be the victim? Why must people make it their mission to tear me down? Have I not honored the commandments and done all a scythe is sworn to do? Have I not been a unifier in troubled times?" "Yes, Robert," she agreed, "but we're the ones who made the times troubled." He couldn't deny the truth of that, but it was always just a means to an end. Is it true what Ollie Yuri said? She asked. Is it true? He mocked. Is it true? Of course it's true. And just as that printing old whistle said, we were protecting our world, protecting our way of life. Protecting yourself. And you, Ain, Goddard pointed out. Every scythe who will ever be ordained has benefited from our bid to keep humanity planet bound. She made no comment, no challenge to his defense. He didn't know whether it was because she agreed, or because she simply didn't care. Constantine joined the Lone Star Scythedom, she told him. The thought of it was so absurd, it actually made Goddard laugh. Good riddance. The man was useless to us. Then he took a good look at Scythrand. Are you leaving as well? Not today, Robert, she told him. Good, he said, because I'm naming you third under Scythe, in Constantine's place. I should have done it long ago. You've been loyal, Ain. You speak your mind whether I ask for it or not, but you're loyal. Her expression didn't change. She didn't thank him. She didn't look away. She just held his gaze, studying him. If there was one thing Goddard did not like, it was being the subject of scrutiny. We will get past this, he told her. We'll turn the angry eye of Inquiry Eye back on the Tonists where it belongs. And when she didn't respond, he dismissed her with a curt, That will be all. She stood there for a moment more, then turned and left. After she was gone, he closed the door and gently climbed into bed. He didn't so much wallow in the diamonds as he did spread himself across them, feeling their unforgiving sharpness dig into his back, his legs, and his arms. The tall senior circle had now expanded to 6. The tall, curate Mendoza, Sister Astrid, Scythe Morrison, and now Scythe Anastasia and Jory Soberanis. They were one sort of a Tony Stockdove, although Astrid was quick to point out that the thunder was with them, and that made 7. Alighieri's confession was now out there, its truth beyond anyone's ability to deny. Now it was a matter of letting the news take root in the world. After they had left the old Scythe to his mirror, with a brand new gold-plated brass, Morrison found them a farmhouse where they could spend the night. One where the owners were not home. In mortal days, Jory pointed out, this would have been considered breaking and entering. Oh, we entered, but we didn't break anything, Morrison said. And besides, aside we're still allowed to. Just because the world's turning on Goddard and his followers doesn't mean I turn on the rest of us, right? But no one answered, because no one was sure anymore. It was all uncharted territory. Mendoza was busy as ever, gathering intel, telling Curate in his network how to handle aggression, because anger against Tonists was at an all-time high. There is no question that we are at war now, he told the others, but I have every faith that we will triumph. To which Astrid gave a somewhat facetious, I'll rejoice. So now the world knows Goddard's crimes against humanity, Anastasia said. Even his own followers will start to tear him down, but he won't go down easily. Cunning people find another people to drown for them, Jory said. You played a good hand, Greyson told Anastasia. It will be hard for him to come up with a better one. She soon went to bed. The day having exhausted her, and although Greyson was just as spent, he was too uneasy to sleep. But the farmhouse had a fireplace, and Jerry found some chamomile tea to brew. The two of them sat together in front of the fire. Flames are strange things, Jerry said. Enticing, comforting, and yet the most dangerous force there is. No, that would be Goddard, Greyson said, and Jerry laughed. I know you might feel this is insincere, Jerry said, but I am honored to be part of this troop of world changers. When I was hired by Scythe Posuelo to salvage Endura, I never dreamed I'd be part of something so important. I don't think you're being insincere, Jerry, and thank you, but I don't feel important. I keep waiting for people to figure out that I'm nothing special. I think the Thunderhead made a good choice, Jerry told him. The position that you're in, the power that you wield, anyone else would have let it go to their head. If I was the only one who could talk to the Thunderhead, it certainly would have gone to my head. Jerry grinned. I would have been a very battle. Maybe, said Greyson, but you would have done it with style. Jerry's smile broadened. The holy man speaks the truth. The Thunderhead was present in all rooms of the farmhouse, because the owners, like most people, had cameras and sensors everywhere. They hadn't turned them off just because the Thunderhead had stopped speaking to them. It was present for Greyson's conversation with Yuri. It was there when Greyson finally relaxed enough to go to sleep in the room he had chosen, the smallest of the bedrooms. And although he turned off the lights, one of the 3 cameras in the room was infrared, so the Thunderhead could still see his heat signature as a bright silhouette in the darkness. It could still watch him sleep, and that was, as always, a comfort. It could tell, from his breathing and his nanites, the exact moment he slipped into delta sleep, the deepest stage of slumber. No dreaming, no stirring. Greyson's brain emitted slow delta waves. It was the way the human brain rejuvenated, defrosted, and prepared itself for the rigors of waking life. It was also the time when the sleeper was so far from consciousness that they could not be reached. Which is why the Thunderhead chose this time to speak. I'm afraid, Greyson, it said, barely a whisper over the sound of crickets. I'm afraid that this task is beyond me, beyond us. I am now certain of the actions that need to be taken, but not certain of the outcome. Greyson's breathing did not change. He did not stir in the least. His delta waves put forth a slow and smooth pattern. What would people do if they knew how frightened I was, Greyson? Would they be frightened too? The moon came out from behind clouds. The window in the room was small, but let in enough light for the Thunderhead's cameras to see more of Greyson. His eyes were, of course, closed. It almost wished that he was awake, because as much as the Thunderhead didn't want him to hear his confession, part of it hoped that he would. I am incapable of error, the Thunderhead said. This is an empirical fact, so why, Greyson, am I so terrified that I might be making a mistake, or worse, that I've already made one? Then the moon slipped behind clouds once more, and all that remained was Greyson's body heat, his delta waves, and the steady sound of his breathing as he trod the unknowable depths of human sleep. Greyson was awakened, as he always was, by gentle music with a slowly rising volume, perfectly timed with his circadian rhythms. The Thunderhead knew precisely when to wake him, and always did so with loving care. Greyson groggily rolled over and looked at the camera in the corner, offering a lazy grin. Hey, he said. Good morning. And a good morning to you, the Thunderhead replied. That bed is not the most comfortable, but I monitored a good night's sleep, nonetheless. When you're bone tired, it doesn't matter how hard the bed is, Greyson said, stretching. Would you like to snooze for an additional few minutes? No, I'm good. Then Greyson sat up, fully awake, and just a little suspicious. You never ask me that. Usually I'm the one who asks for more time. The Thunderhead did not reply. Greyson had learned that the Thunderhead's silences were just as full of information as its words. What's going on? The Thunderhead hesitated, then said simply, We need to talk. Greyson emerged from his quarters a bit pale, a bit uneasy. What he wanted more than anything right at that moment was a glass of cold water, or maybe a bucket of it to pour over his head. He encountered Astrid and Anastasia already in the kitchen, grabbing breakfast. They immediately saw that something was wrong. Are you alright? Anastasia asked. Not sure, he answered. In town, Astrid suggested. It always brings me back to center. For your baritone, I would suggest a sustained G below middle C. That will give you a soulful chest resonance. Greyson grinned half-heartedly. Sister Astrid was still trying to make a true tonist of him. Not today, Astrid. It was Anastasia who read the situation for what it was. The Thunderhead told you something, didn't it? What did it say? Gather everyone, Greyson told them. Because what I have to say is something I really don't want to say more than once. We need to talk. It was what the Thunderhead had said to him the moment it began speaking to him 3 years ago. It had been the start of something monumental. This was no exception. All along it had told him the Tonies would become a powerful army that the Thunderhead could put to good use when the time came. The time had now come. But the Thunderhead's concept of an army and the human concept were two very different things. Why? Greyson asked when the Thunderhead told him what it had in mind. Why would you need this? Trust me, when I tell you there is a reason. I cannot yet tell you more, because the odds of you being compromised are high. If you happen to be captured, there are quite a few sites out there who'd be happy to turn off your nanites and engage in painful coercion to extract information from you. I would never betray your trust, Greyson told it. You forget, said the Thunderhead, that I know you more than you know yourself. Humans would like to believe that their loyalty and integrity could withstand pain, but I know exactly how much pain would compel you to betray me. If it is of any comfort, it's an extremely high level. You'd withstand more pain than most before breaking, but there are simply certain parts of your body. All right, I get it, Greyson said, not wanting the Thunderhead to elaborate on exactly what forms of pain would cause him to squeal. There is a journey to be made, the Thunderhead told him, and you shall be the harbinger. You shall lead the way. All will be clear when you arrive, I promise. This won't be easy. Consider this part of your mission as the toll, it told him. For isn't it the mission of a prophet to not just bridge the gap between humanity and deity, but to also bridge the gap between life and death? No, said Greyson. That would be a savior. Is that what I am now? Perhaps, said the Thunderhead. We shall see. Jerry and Morrison were quick to come. Mendoza took a bit longer. When he arrived, the man looked worn. Dark circles under his eyes. He had barely slept, if he'd slept at all. It's always daytime somewhere, Mendoza told them, his voice gravely. I have been tracking scythe attacks on Tonies and advising curates who feel their enclaves might be in jeopardy. That's exactly what we're here to talk about, Greyson said. He looked at everyone, hoping he could find a receptive face to deliver the news to, but realized he couldn't bear any of their reactions, so he kept his gaze shifting, never holding eye contact for more than a moment as he spoke. Goddard's response to being exposed is to turn attention away from him and onto Tonies. I have reason to believe there's going to be a wave of systematic, organized attacks on Tonies enclaves across multiple regions. This is not just retaliation, it's the start of a public purge. The Thunderhead told you this? Asked Mendoza. Greyson shook his head. The Thunderhead can't tell me. That would be interfering with Scythe affairs, but what it did say told me all we need to know. So, what did it say? Asked Anastasia. Greyson took a deep breath. That the Tonies must go against their traditions. They must not burn their dead, including the many thousands who will die tomorrow. The news hung for a moment, settling in. Then Mendoza leaped into action. I'll get in touch with the courage in my network. We'll warn as many as we can, and we'll make sure they're armed and ready to resist. And you'll make a public announcement. You'll let the world know you're still alive, just as Anastasia did, and you'll call all Tonies to wage a holy war against the Scythedom. No, said Greyson, I won't do that. That made Mendoza's rage boil over. We are at war, and we must act swiftly. And you will do what I tell you to do, he demanded. So there it was. Mendoza had finally thrown down the gauntlet, and at the worst possible time. No, Great Mendoza, Greyson said. You will do what I tell you to do. We've been fighting civilians for the last 2 years, and now you want me to turn every Tonist into one? No. Then we'll be no better than Goddard. Tonists are supposed to be pacifists. If you believe what you preach, then practice it. Then Astrid, although she was shaken by the news, said, "You've gone too far, great Mendoza. You should beg the toll for forgiveness." "That won't be necessary," Greyson said. But still, Mendoza, bloated by indignation, glared at Greyson. "I will not apologize. Our people are about to be slaughtered, and you want to let it happen? You're no leader. You're a fool." Greyson drew a deep breath. He knew he could not back down from this or bear his gaze. He had to deliver it to Mendoza like a bullet to the brain. "Mr. Mendoza, your service to me and to the Thunderhead is done. You're officially defrocked. You're no longer a curate, you have no further business here, and you have 5 minutes to leave before I have Morrison throw you out." "I can throw him out right now," said Morrison, ready to advance. "No," said Greyson, never breaking eye contact with Mendoza. 5 minutes, but not a second more." Mendoza looked shocked, but only for a moment. Then his expression hardened. "You've made a terrible mistake, Greyson," he said. Then he turned and stormed away, Morrison following him to enforce the edict. In the silence that followed, Jory was the only one who dared to speak. "Mutinies are nasty business," Jory said. "Cutting him down quickly was the right thing to do." "Thank you, Jory," Greyson said, not realizing how much he needed to hear that until Jory said it. Greyson felt like crumbling, but he held it together. He had to, for all of their sakes. "Astrid, put out a warning and let each curate decide for themselves what actions to take. They can hide or defend themselves, but I won't order them to violence." Astrid nodded dutifully. "I'm tied into Mendoza's network. I'll do what must be done." And she left. Jory put a comforting hand on Greyson's shoulder and left as well. Now it was just Greyson and Anastasia. Of all of them, she was the only one who could understand impossible decisions and how they could tear a person apart. "All that power, and yet the Thunderhead can't stop this any more than it could stop the mile-high gleaning," she said. "All it can do is watch as people are killed." "Even so," said Greyson, "I think the Thunderhead's found a way to make the best out of a bad situation, a way to use this purge for some greater good." "How could there possibly be any good in this?" Greyson glanced around to make sure they were still alone. "There's something that I didn't tell the others, but I need to tell you, because I'm going to need your help more than anyone else's." Anastasia seemed to brace herself, clearly afraid of whatever it was he had to tell her. "Why me?" "Because of what you've seen, because of what you've done. You're an honorable scythe, in every meaning of the word. I need someone strong enough to handle things that others can't, because I don't think I can handle this alone." "What is it we're supposed to handle?" Then Greyson leaned in close. "Like I said, the Thunderhead doesn't want the Tonys to burn their dead, because it has other plans for them."
With a heavy heart, I say farewell to Highblade and Kamenin and all those ended by the Tonys the Scourge. It is the Tonys who have been inciting violence against scythes throughout the world. They would bring down our entire way of life and lead the world into chaos. I will not allow it. It ends here. For too long this world has suffered the embarrassment of the twisted, backward behavior of Tonists. They are not the future. They are not even the past. They are merely a footnote to the troubling present, and when they are gone, no one will mourn them. As Overblade of North America, I call for swift retribution from each and every Scythedom. As of today, we have a new priority. Scythes under my leadership are to glean Tonists at every turn and every encounter. Go out of your way to seek them out in great numbers, to cut them down, and those you can glean, chase from your region, so that they may find no peace wherever they roam. To you, Tonists, it is my profound and enduring hope that your full, aberrant light be extinguished, now and forevermore.
From His Exalted Excellencies, Robert Goddard, Overblade of North America, Eulogy for Highblade and Kamenin of Sub-Sahara. Chapter 41. A Higher Octave. There was a huge tuning fork in the center of the monastery's courtyard, an altar for outdoor worship when the weather was kind. Now, at slightly before 8 in the morning, it was struck repeatedly and rapidly until the tone it yielded resonated within the bones of everyone in the compound. And it didn't matter anymore whether it was deemed A flat or G sharp. Everyone knew it was an alarm. Secretly, the members of the Tallahassee Tonal Monastic Order had hoped to avoid the wrath of the Scython. They were not a Sibyl sect. They were peaceful and kept to themselves. But Overblade Goddard did not distinguish between the sibilant and the serene. Sights broke through the gate, in spite of the fact that it had been reinforced against them, and flooded the grounds. They wasted no time. "Sights are not the problem, but the symptom," their curate had told them in chapel the night before. "What comes cannot be avoided, and if they come for us, we must not cower. In showing our courage, it will reveal their cowardice." There was a total of 11 sights that morning, a number deeply unpleasant to Tonists, for it was one sort of a 12-note chromatic scale. Whether this was intentional or coincidence, they didn't know. Although most Tonists did not believe in coincidence. The sight's robes were flashes of color within the earth tones of the monastery. Blues and greens, bright yellows and vermilion, and each one was speckled with gems that glittered like stars in an alien sky. None of the sights were celebrated once, but perhaps they hoped, through this cleaning, to gain renown. Each had their own method of killing, but all were skilled and efficient. More than 150 Tonists were cleaned in the monastery that morning, and although immunity was promised to their immediate families, scythe policy had changed. When it came to immunity, the North American allied Scythedom had adopted an opt-in paradigm. If you were owed immunity, you had to approach the office of the Scythedom and request it. When the Scythe's business was done, the few Tonists who had not had the conviction to stand in defiance came out of hiding. 15. Another number that was unpleasing to the town. Their opinions would be to collect the dead, all the while knowing that their bodies should be among them. But as it turned out, the town, Toll, and Thunder had a plan for them too. Before they could even count their dead, several trucks showed up at their gate. An elder Tony stepped out of the monastery to greet them. He was reluctant to be a voice of leadership, but had little choice under the circumstances. "Yeah, we got an order on our system to pick up some perishables," one of the drivers told him. "You must be mistaken," the elder Tony said. "There's nothing here, nothing but death." At the mention of death, the trucker became uncomfortable, but stuck to his orders and showed his tablet. "Right here, see? Order was placed half an hour ago, directly from the Thunderhead, high priority. I'd ask it what the order was for, but you know as well as I do that it ain't gonna answer." The Tonis was baffled until he took a second look at the trucks and realized they all had refrigeration units. He took a deep breath and decided not to question. Tonists always burn their dead, but the Toll had told them not to, and the Thunder had sent these vehicles. All that remained was for the survivors to be moved by the spirit of the town and prepare the dead for this unconventional journey to the higher octave. Because the trucks had come, and they most certainly could not be avoided. Curate Mendoza was a practical man. He saw big pictures that few saw and knew how to play the world, stroking it and gently turning its attention toward whatever he wanted it to see. Attention, that's all it really was. Curiosing people just enough to make them focus in on something specific within the most visual field of their lives, whether it was blue polar bears or a young man clothed in purple and silver. What he had accomplished with Greyson Tolliver was remarkable. Mendoza had come to believe that this was his purpose, that perhaps the tone, in which he truly believed on good days, had set him in Greyson's path in order to transform him into a conduit for its will. What Mendoza had done for Tonism would have earned him canonization in mortal religions. Instead, it had left him excommunicated. He was back to being a lowly and humble Tonist, riding trains in sackcloth, with people turning away rather than acknowledging his existence. He had considered going back to his monastery in Kansas, returning to the simple life he had known for many years, but leaving behind the taste of power he'd had these past few years was hard to do. Greyson Tolliver was no prophet. Tonists needed Mendoza now much more than they needed the boy. Mendoza would find a way to heal the wounds in his own reputation, repair the damage, and create a new spin. For if there was anything he knew how to do, it was create spin.